right. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Ability Driven Teaching. We are here today with our special guest, Dana.
Hi, friends. How are you?
Good. Hi, Dana.
Yes, we're excited to chat with you today. So can you tell us all a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do?
Okay, my name's Dana Jordan. I am from Southeast Texas. I've been teaching for 29 years. I'm married to my kindergarten sweetheart. We've been knowing each other since kindergarten, and we've been married for 31 years. I have 3 daughters from the ages of 19 to 26, and I just had my first grandbaby boy last Wednesday. Yeah, he was born 5 weeks early.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah, so we're enjoying that. I teach in the same school I went to school at as a child, and it's fabulous. So that's just a little bit about me.
I love your
Awesome.
story.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So is it exciting having a boy in the family after having all girls?
Yeah, I have no clue what to do.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little learning curve there.
Yeah, a big learning curve.
Yeah.
So since you're in Texas, were you hit by all that winter weather that happened not too long ago?
Oh yeah, so we did have the ice storm, and yeah, we're not used to having anything below like maybe 60 degrees, so that wasn't fun. We missed a little bit of school. We're constantly missing school though, between hurricanes. We had a chemical plant explosion last year. Yeah, so between floods, hurricanes, ice storms, you never know.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been just a crazy year in general, so I can't
Oh
imagine
yeah,
adding all that in.
Yeah.
yeah, we've been back to school like face to face all year, so since August.
Oh,
Oh, okay, cool.
nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, fun starter question. I'm excited for this one. So, if you won a classroom makeover, what would you want your classroom to look like?
So funny story is that we are actually getting a brand new campus, and we'll be moving in 2023.
Oh,
So I've kind of been able to do a little bit of this, like my dream classroom. I know I won't get it, but our school has been hit by, I think, 5 hurricanes in the last 15 years, 2 floods, and then the chemical explosion. So I pretty much like literally have a plant growing in my sink that I have to kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk, cut it down. And so I really just would love to have a classroom that had 4 walls that didn't get wet when it rained, matching furniture,
yeah.
Critters not crawling into it during the school year. So, but I would love for it to be neutral, lots of bookshelves. I'm a book hoarder. Like I said, anything would be better than I have now.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you for the new one.
Yeah. So we're excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Safe and dry.
Safe and dry for sure. But since it's my school, the school I grew up going to, I'm kind of a little sad, having to leave it.
Yeah.
Because we have a great community culture there.
Yeah.
That's true. So I've been following on Instagram for a little while now, this woman called the Superhero Teacher.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm obsessed. And recently she did this bus classroom makeover. And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have my classroom be a bus. And I could just drive us wherever. And she had a cool like 70s theme. I think I would do maybe like a foresty theme. I like nature, mountains. So like some deep purples and greens and like a real like fresh earthy vibe. But yeah, I would love a classroom on wheels that I could just take wherever.
Kind of like Miss Frizzle.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I would like for it just to be calming.
Yeah.
Because so many kids come in and, they can't handle the bright, bold colors. So I just like things that are calming and like you said, natural, kind of like earthy. I would totally go for that as well.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I think for me, I've always had this envision of my classroom looking like a studio apartment. I'm big on life skills, and we work on a lot of life skills in my room. I don't necessarily like having individual desks or like conventional looking workspaces, because everything that I do in my classroom, I tie to a life skill. So I think it would be cool to have, like a little kitchenette area and an area to
I
learn how
love
to
that.
make beds, an area
Mhm.
where like a couch somewhere, like something that it looked like when you walked in, it looked like a place of learning, but it also kind of looked like someone lived there.
Yeah. And I like that too. I like to have like, because it is their home away from home. You want
Yeah.
them to have that homey feeling and they feel comfortable and enjoy and want to come to school
Yeah,
because, that's the kind of vibe you want to give.
exactly. Yes.
Mhm. So when we were chatting about what to talk about on the podcast, you were saying that reading is really your jam. You love
Oh,
teaching
yes.
it. So what tips do you have to support students that struggle with reading?
Well, I mean, I'm really big on differentiation. And so when kids come in my room every year, I'm always blessed to whoever's put on my roll, I know that they were placed there for a reason. And so I know that my goal throughout the year is to make sure that I meet their needs. So it from year to year it changes. So I take my data and I go from there and I try to individualize as much as I can for each one of my students. That's one of my big, huge takeaways that I try to do every year. I know it makes a lot of other teachers crazy because they feel like it's just so much that they have to do, but I'm a real big planner, so I try to like to get the front end planning in the summertime so that when I do start school that I have that time to spend and really target the areas that these individual students need.
Yeah, I'm sure that could be like a lot of extra work. Is there anything that you do to kind of streamline the process? I know it's hard to streamline the process when you're individualizing for every student that comes in your room, but do you have any kind of templates or streamlined process that you have for yourself when you're planning?
Yes, I do. I'm a big binder girl, so I have my binders. Oh, I know.
Binders.
Oh, we could be best friends.
We could.
Yeah.
Binders are my favorite thing
Yes.
in the world.
So, and that helps me stay organized as far as, especially individualizing, especially if I have students who are maybe in the process of going through the tiers to be tested, maybe, then I can keep track easily of what, they're going to be asking for as far as documentation. And so, yeah, I do have templates that I use to keep in my binder for individual data. I have, small group data. And then, just I have like little different templates just for note taking. So, yeah.
Great. So then how can we help build students' confidence in reading? Because I know some students can either be really shy or really just uncomfortable with reading in general. What tips do you have
Yes.
for that?
I'm big on building self-esteem because I
Mhm.
feel like if you can build that self-esteem, that's the biggest battle to fight. Because if they believe in themselves, then they are going to soar. And so I try to make a very a positive vibe in my room that we are a family because I do live in a small town, so they know that once they're in my room, they're mine. I may see them down we call the grocery store at the Bruce's. I might see them down at the Bruce's with their mom or their dad. Doesn't matter if it's 10, 15 years from now. And they're going to know that I still love them. I still believe in them. And, so many kids come in and I've had students, in fact, there's a student I had last year, and he did have some anger issues, and we've worked on those. And one of the ways that I could get him out of that funk was he loved telling jokes. So if he was like going down that little rabbit hole, and they were the silliest jokes, half of them didn't even make sense, and then he'd come back at me. I saw him last week in the hallway, and he was having a bad morning, and I just made up some random joke, and he literally belly laughed, rolled around on the floor. And just that little thing changed his day, And so, I take into account their personalities, their home life, maybe what happened on the way to school in the morning. But I try to, and I call them touch points. Not that I touch, physically touch anybody, but I try to make sure that I have eye to eye contact in a conversation at least 4 to 5 times a day with each one of my kids in my room, because I feel like that that builds such a connection. And if they know that I care and I believe in them, then they are going to start believing in themselves.
Yeah, no, I love that. I feel like that's the difference between like a good teacher and a great teacher. Someone who's able to put relationships first. Like academics and being able to be in the school building is important for sure. And if you're able to do that with kids, if you're able to teach academics and teach them how to be in the school building, you are a good teacher. But if you're able to put that to the side some days and put relationships with kids first and work on those relationship skills, that's what makes you a great teacher, I feel like.
Well, and I agree with you, because if you don't build that relationship and that trust and help them learn to believe in themselves, until you have that, then especially if it's a struggling student, you're not going to be able to take that next step to work on the academics.
Exactly.
I was just thinking about jokes. Like I struggle to come up with jokes, but I always remember one joke. So I'm going to share my one joke that's probably really terrible.
Wait, tell us.
Okay. What do you call a cow that had a baby?
What?
Be caffeinated. It's a coffee joke.
I love it.
Maybe not so good with the kids, but it hits with adults sometimes, especially if you're in a coffee shop.
Okay.
Well, even during pandemic last year, it's the same child. He would just need to talk to me one-on-one. And so we would have online Dorito dates.
Oh, I love that.
So that was our thing, but once again, that's just building the relationship. And I feel like that is just a huge part of being a teacher, especially with your struggling students, your struggling readers.
Yeah, with most of with probably I would say almost 50% of our kids, like you can come in and be a good teacher and you can teach academics and you can do that stuff. And 50% of your kids are going to have a lot of takeaways and they're going to be fine. But if you're not working on those relationships, you're missing over half of your class.
Definitely.
Build those bonds. So that's awesome. I love the Dorito dates.
Yeah.
Dorito dates with somebody.
Yeah. So he still brings big bags of Doritos to school, and he'll come down to my room sometimes so we can just have a small Dorito date. I know.
Okay,
like
anybody out there, if you want to have a Dorito date with Madison, let us know in the comments.
Yeah, so I just love little things like that.
Yeah,
a lot. Those are the little things they will remember, they will remember too.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So if some of our teachers and students are still virtual, do you have any tips for teaching reading virtually? Because I know that can be a real struggle too.
Yeah, we had to finish the year out virtually. I made these digital little task. They look like a task card, but I had all of their information on it, kind of like you would have at school, like all their login information with whatever app or website they were going to. And that was one of my things. That was probably the top thing my parents loved, because some of them did not understand or know how to do things virtually. But the other thing is just like the little Dorito date, taking the time to, especially if you have kids who are struggling, or maybe they're anxious, or they're just not, maybe it's just the home situation, that they that you take that time. If you even need to have like a little individual or small group session, nothing about school, just about building those relationships. I think that was one of my top takeaways during last spring when we were out, because it's hard, and you don't know what's going on at home and what other struggles they're having. So sometimes you can maybe get a little bit more insight by doing that, and then you can understand and maybe be able to help them better by knowing those things.
Yeah. Right. It's all about the relationships.
And I will say, I'm a big relationship person.
Yeah. Yes. So important. And I will say, I was observing a teacher the other day. I'm a PhD student, so I'm working with some teachers right now that are in their master's program that are currently teaching. And I worked with one the other day, and she was teaching on Zoom because a lot of the schools around here are still virtual. And they were doing like a reader's theater, and they had this story of this gingerbread man that was running away, and each of the kids had a part. And it was just really great to see like how engaged they all were, even though it was still online. I think they really enjoyed like getting to act a little bit and seeing each other. And majority of them had their cameras on, but she didn't make them in case they weren't comfortable with that. So I think just finding those engaging activities, even if it's online, it was really fun for the kids, and it was fun for me to watch.
Right. We did, I did small group reading on,
Mhm.
in my Zoom little lessons at the end of the year. And that was really, it was hard because it was a lot of back end work, but it was worth it when you would see their smiles and they were able to see their friends, and we would work on fluency. And like you said, we would read, work on intonation or whatever, and we do it in funny voices or, different things. Or I'd tell them to go grab something out of their room to be a microphone or something like that. Just, and then you do have to make it engaging, and you do have to
Mhm.
think out of the box. Especially I had no clue how I was going to even handle that situation,
Yeah.
and it ended up being one of the best things I've ever done.
That's
Right.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, that was hard trying to figure out how to teach online, and even now you could, for us, like you could be online at any moment and you could have to adjust your lesson plans because your class has to quarantine for two
Oh yeah.
or 3 weeks. So like
And
at any point we have to switch back because we've been in person. My class has been in person since September off and on, but at any point this school year, we've had a couple of times where we've had to quarantine or the whole school's had to quarantine. So we've had to go back, and it's been hard trying to adjust, but always keeping relationships at the forefront of everything for me as a teacher has made things a lot easier because
mm-hmm.
I'm open and honest with my parents, with my students. I feel like we're able to learn more because we're able to make adjustments and pivot where we need to because everyone's being honest about where they're at,
Right.
and what
And you
their
want to
abilities
know
are.
if parents are having struggles, or, if mom or dad have lost their job, or, because you don't realize that when you have them face to face, you can kind of tell when they're having a bad day or something's going on. But it's a whole lot harder when it's virtual.
Exactly.
Yeah, we haven't had to quarantine like that. It's, I mean, we haven't had to have classroom or school quarantine.
Yeah.
So, like, I have one that's out right now, and it's just like if we have them in little pods. So, everywhere they go, that little pod may have to stay out, but
Yeah.
the whole class doesn't. I can't imagine being virtual all year long because the growth my students have made this year being in class has been phenomenal.
Yeah, being in person it's a huge, you don't realize until something like this happens how much our kids benefit from being in their classroom with their teacher, with their friends and their peers. So it is an adjustment. Anytime you have to be out of the classroom, having to figure out like the individualizing that we do in the classroom, we have to do times, I would say almost times 20 when they're not in the
Mm-hmm.
classroom because you're having to take into account everything that goes on at home and those things that are affected by that. You have to do a lot of extra work individualizing for kids when they're at home. So putting, like I said, putting those relationships in the forefront of everything makes everything a little bit easier, I feel like, because the daunting task of individualizing when you're in class, like I said, is maximized when you're out of class. And when
It
you put
is.
those relationships in the forefront, when you're talking to your families and your students and figuring out where everyone is, it does make life a little easier for everyone involved.
So, do your life skill students, did they go into any of their classrooms during the day, regular ed classrooms?
Yes, NA. We're still navigating what that looks like in COVID life. But for centers instruction, yes, and for small academic times, we do go to other classrooms, or individuals go to other classrooms with support. But that has been a little bit put on pause off and on during this COVID time. I'm hoping, I know that nothing is going to stop happening due to COVID, but I'm hoping that next school year we'll have a better plan of attack when it comes to all of these things, and we'll be able to do a lot more of the things we used to do.
Right. I have a student that comes in for 45 minutes every day from life skills. My kids are fabulous with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you know, I've had another student who had to leave to go to another to a behavior unit this year. But if I say, "Oh my gosh, who's absent today?" they still include him.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes my heart as a teacher heart happy, because they still consider him part of our family.
Yeah.
So I hope that when he transitions back into the regular classroom, maybe next year or the following year, that, you know, they had that bond with him, that they will still feel the same way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, relationships, like we've been saying this whole time, those are the most important. And I feel like those are the things that we've had to fight the most for during times of COVID, because, you know, they got put on the back burner because we're trying to make sure that everyone they're physically healthy. And then we're trying to make sure that everyone's academically being served, and some of those things on the admin level and the school board level, they get forgotten. And so us as teachers, we have to advocate for those times of inclusion and those times of relationship and those social skills, those times of building those relationships. So it is nice to hear teachers still advocating for those.
Yeah, and I have two of my daughters have type 1 narcolepsy, and so they had struggles all through school, and it took us about 10 years to get them diagnosed. So as a mom, I knew that there was something wrong, and I understand, and I know how it feels like to have to advocate for your own children, and so I think that has helped me understand and try to help parents that come into my classroom, like, hey, I get it. And they don't feel alone.
Yeah, that is nice.
So is there anything else that you want to tell us about yourself, like where the audience can find you or what you specialize in that you can help with?
So I am a big, there's a new buzzword out there, the science of reading, structured literacy. And so I'm big proponent of that. You can find me at Texas Teacher Love on Instagram and on Facebook. And this summer, I'm going to be launching a workshop intensive to help teachers prepare for school, back-end planning, going in and taking their curriculum and figuring out how to, because not all curriculum is made the same. And so they can take that information so they can incorporate the science of reading and structured literacy into their classroom.
Awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, and we'll definitely include your Instagram link in the show notes. And if you have any other links you want to share with us, we'll put those in there too.
That sounds great. It's been so nice talking to y'all, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yes.
Thanks. All right, guys, if you love this episode of Ability Driven Teaching, go ahead and leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at Ability Driven Teaching. Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye, guys.